Pack your things, Dad. A care facility will be better for everyone. Wade didn't even look at me when he said it, just stood there, sleeves rolled, phone in hand, ready to text whoever would celebrate getting rid of the old man. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. I just said quietly, "Turn on the TV first." Carlene, his wife, frowned but did as I asked. The screen flickered and there it was. Footage from my own living room camera. Wade, laughing, mocking my limp walk in front of his friends like some cruel comedian. No one moved. The laughter from the video filled the silence. And I simply whispered, "Let's start with that one." But that was only the first clip. The rest would make her cry. The video ended, but the silence didn't. Carlene stared at the floor like it could swallow her whole. Wade, on the other hand, looked like a man trying to argue with gravity shifting, twitching, pretending he wasn't caught. "You really had to install cameras, Dad," he muttered, voice half sarcastic, half nervous. I smiled, slow, steady. The kind of smile that comes only after you've survived decades of family dinners. "Son, at my age, I forget where I put my glasses, not where I hide my evidence." Carlene snorted, tried to hold it in, but the laugh slipped out, sharp and guilty. Wade shot her a look that could curdle milk. "Oh, don't you glare at her," I said. "She's just realizing she married the man who made fun of a senior citizen with a hip replacement that cost more than his car." Carlene's lip trembled. Then she asked softly, "How many recordings are there?" I pointed at the flash drive beside the remote. 57, I said. "A full season, with commentary. And that was before I showed them the clip from the family barbecue, the one where Wade called me dead weight while I was flipping his burger. I pressed play again. There we were at the family barbecue last summer. I stood by the grill, wearing my ridiculous kiss the cook he might not live forever apron. Wade, drink in hand, leaned toward his friends and said, 'The old man still thinks he's useful. Bless him.' Laughter. Real, belly, deep laughter. On the couch now. Wade stared at his shoes like they owed him an apology. 'You said that in front of the kids,' Carlene whispered, her voice trembling. Even little Owen laughed because he thought it was a joke. I chuckled softly. Well, at least someone found me funny that day. Then, after a pause, "You know, Wade, it's wild. I worked 40 years to build a home where everyone could feel welcome, and somehow I'm the only one who doesn't." He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "Don't worry, I'm not mad. I'm entertained." "You spent your whole life mocking me, now you're watching the reruns." Carlene let out a shaky laugh through tears. I leaned back, grabbed my coffee, and said, "Don't change the channel. The next one's from your anniversary dinner." And that's when things really started to burn, just not on the grill this time. The next clip flickered on the screen, their anniversary dinner at that overpriced restaurant Wade loved so much. You could see the waiter placing the champagne, Carlene smiling politely, and me sitting there, third wheel to my own invitation. Then Wade lifted his glass and said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, "To our freedom one day. We'll finally have the house to ourselves." Everyone laughed. Except me, of course. I was too busy choking on my mashed potatoes. Back in the living room, I sipped my lukewarm coffee and murmured, "I never knew freedom came with a side of roasted humiliation." Carlene wiped her eyes, half laughing, half sobbing. "Wade, how could you?" he stammered. It was just a joke." "Son," I said, "if that was a joke, you might want to try stand-up. You've already mastered sitting down and disappointing people." Even Carlene cracked a smile at that, though she tried to hide it behind her sleeve. I reached for the remote again, slower this time. "Now," I said, "let's see the one where you forgot to mute your phone during your private conversation with your financial advisor." He went pale because he knew exactly which conversation I meant. The screen blinked, and suddenly we were in Wade's office, the camera perched neatly on the bookshelf I built him years ago. His voice came through, smooth and careless. "Yeah, once Dad's out, I'll refinance the place. The care home costs will eat his pension anyway. It's like a long-term discount, you know?" Carlene gasped, as if the sound itself had slapped her. "Wade!" He turned beet red, like a man caught cheating at Monopoly. "It's not what it sounds like!" "Oh?" I leaned forward, eyebrow raised. Then please, enlighten us. Because to me, it sounds like my son just put a sale tag on my existence. The silence afterward was delicious. Even the cat who hadn't shown up all morning strolled into the room, sat down by Wade's feet, and turned her back to him. A true judge of character. I told you that loan was a bad idea, Carlene muttered through her tears. And I told him that karma's got 4 Kelvin's resolution, I said, lifting the remote like a preacher holding scripture. Wade clenched his fists. Dad, stop this circus! Circus? I grinned. Good thing you said that. The next videos got balloons. And trust me, what came next made him wish the screen would just explode. The video flickered again, and suddenly, there we were at Owen's 8th birthday party. The camera caught me sitting at the end of the table, wearing a silly paper hat shaped like a dinosaur. Wade had given it to me, so I'd fit in with the kids. I laughed at the time because what else do you do when your son hands you a humiliation wrapped in humor? In the clip, Wade leaned toward another parent and whispered, He's harmless, just forgetful. Thinks he's still useful around the house. Then, as the cake arrived, I leaned to blow the candles with Owen, and Wade shouted, Careful, Dad. Those are real flames, you might burn your pension check. Even in the replay, you could hear people laugh. Back in the living room, the laughter from the recording seemed to echo through the walls. Carlene covered her mouth, whispering, Oh my God, you mocked him in front of our son. I smiled a little bitterly. That was the moment I realized I wasn't the guest of honor. I was the entertainment. Then I chuckled. You know, I should have charged admission. At least then I could have afforded my own cake. Carlene gave a watery laugh. Wade didn't move, just stared at the screen, pale and small. I set the remote down and said quietly, But don't worry. I didn't come here to shame you, Wade. I came to teach you what happens when you underestimate an old man with good Wi-Fi. And that's when the TV switched to live mode, showing something that made both of them freeze. The TV screen blinked, shifting from the old footage to a live feed. Their living room camera, their faces, their every move caught in real time. Carlene's jaw dropped. Wait, this is now? Exactly, I said, sipping my coffee like a man at a quiet theater. You see, when you live with someone long enough, you learn 2 things. Where they hide their passwords, and when they start lying about you. On the bottom corner of the screen, the Wi-Fi name flashed. Dad still pays the bills. Even the router joined the rebellion. Wade exploded. You're spying on us? That's insane, I chuckled. No, son. Insane is convincing a 73-year-old man that he belongs in a care home while using his own electricity to charge your Tesla. Carlene couldn't help it. She burst out laughing, tears spilling over. He's got you there, Wade. He glared at her. This isn't funny. Oh, but it is, I said. You just don't like the genre. Then I leaned forward, eyes steady on him. Don't worry. The cameras aren't forever, just until the realtor finishes the listing. The listing? Wade stammered. I smiled. You didn't read the fine print, son. The house is still in my name. And when I said that, the silence hit harder than any punch. Wade blinked like a man who just realized his parachute was a backpack full of bricks. The house? What do you mean your name? He asked, voice cracking between disbelief and panic. I shrugged, enjoying the taste of poetic justice as much as my lukewarm coffee. Well, when you told me to move to a care home, I thought, why not? So I started preparing. Spoke to my lawyer, cleaned up my will, checked the deed. I looked straight at him, and imagine my surprise when I learned my generous son never actually finished the transfer papers he bragged about. Carlene gasped. So, technically, I interrupted with a grin, you're my tenants. Which means if I do go to a care home, you'll need to start paying rent. And trust me, I charge extra for disrespect. Even Carlene laughed, half crying, half wheezing. Oh, Lord, Wade, you evicted the landlord. I nodded solemnly. Irony's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Like buying your dad a mug that says World's Best Father right before sending him a brochure for Sunny Meadows Senior Living. Wade collapsed onto the couch, rubbing his face. Dad, please, this is too much. Too much? I leaned back. Son, I haven't even told you who bought the house yet. And that's when his wife's laughter froze because she suddenly realized it wasn't just some random buyer. Carlene's smile wilted like a flower in winter. Wait, who bought the house? She whispered. I took a slow sip of coffee, savoring the moment the way a magician enjoys the silence before the reveal. Well, I said, you know old Mrs. Beckett down the road? The one whose cat you kept complaining about, Wade? He blinked. What about her? She's not the buyer, I replied, but her daughter is. The one who runs that new home care business. Carlene's eyes widened. You didn't. Oh, I did, I said cheerfully. They're turning this place into a luxury assisted living home. Top-notch care, fresh meals, and I'll be living right here in my old bedroom as their first official resident. Wade's mouth opened and closed like a fish, trying to remember how to breathe. You mean, you sold the house, but you're staying here? Exactly. Free rent, better food, and someone else finally taking out the trash. A dream come true. Carlene burst into a hysterical laugh, clutching her stomach. Wade, you just threw your own father a housewarming party he'll never leave. I smiled. Funny how life works, isn't it? One day your son calls you a burden, and the next he's the one looking for boxes. And yet, the best part wasn't the sale, it was what I had waiting for them on that final video clip. I reached for the remote again. Now, I said, let's finish our little movie marathon. The last clip's my favorite. The TV buzzed to life, and there I was, sitting alone in the same kitchen, a month ago. My voice filled the room. Note to self, stop hoping he'll see me, and start preparing to remind him who made this house a home. The date stamp blinked. That was the night after Wade told me I was too slow to keep up with the modern world. In the video, I smiled to the camera, a small, tired, dangerous smile. Let's see how modern he feels when his Wi-Fi bill suddenly goes missing. Carlene laughed through tears. You really did this for weeks? Months, I corrected. Think of it as my retirement hobby. Some people knit sweaters. I knit reality checks. Wade groaned, face buried in his hands. Dad, this is crazy. Crazy? I said, tilting my head. No, son. Crazy is trusting a man who can't even change a light bulb to manage a mortgage. Even the cat meowed like she agreed. I leaned forward, voice soft now. You called me a burden, Wade. But here's the truth. I carried you when you couldn't walk. I paid for your college, your car, your first mistake. I was never a burden. I was the backbone. Then I smiled again, lighter this time. And even spines need to stretch once in a while. But what I did next wasn't revenge, it was a lesson Wade would never forget. I stood up, slowly, not for drama, but because my knees made the kind of sound that deserved its own theme music. Then I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. What's that? Wade asked warily. Your promotion letter, I said with a grin. You've just been promoted to tenant. Carlene bit her lip, trying not to laugh. Oh, Wade. I handed him the paper. It was the new lease signed, sealed, beautifully notarized. Right there in black ink, under tenant's name, Wade and Carlene Martin. Monthly rent, 1 act of kindness, and $1,200. Dad, you can't be serious, Wade said, scanning the paper like a man reading his own eulogy. Oh, I'm serious, I said. You said I was a burden. Well, congratulations, now you're supporting me in the comfort of your former home. Carlene's laughter escaped like a bird breaking free. He's charging you rent, Wade. I shrugged. I thought about making it higher, but I'm merciful. Plus, I get senior discounts. Wade dropped the paper on the table. You planned this? For months, I said. Every cruel word, every joke, every eye roll, all of it helped fund my motivation. I patted his shoulder gently. You should be proud, son. You inspired the greatest comeback since my hip surgery. And yet, even then, he didn't realize I still had one last surprise waiting for both of them. Wade sat there in stunned silence, still holding the lease like it might suddenly turn into an apology. Carlene, meanwhile, leaned back and sighed, not in anger, but in something dangerously close to relief. I don't deserve this house, she said quietly. Not after how we treated you. I looked at her for a long moment. No, you don't, I said honestly. But I do like you, Carlene. You at least remembered my birthday, even if it was just to ask for the Wi-Fi password. She laughed through tears. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said softly, but he did. Wade swallowed hard. Dad, I messed up. I was stressed, stupid. Wade, I interrupted, don't insult stupid people. They'd take offense. Even he cracked a small, embarrassed grin. I'm not asking for an apology, I continued. Just respect. You see, son, age doesn't make us useless, it just makes us quiet. But quiet doesn't mean weak. It means we've been patient long enough. Carlene nodded, whispering. You really planned all this just to teach him? I smiled. Not just him. Everyone. The kids, the neighbors, even the mailman who keeps calling me sir like I fought in the Civil War. I wanted to remind people old doesn't mean done. Then I leaned closer to Wade. And don't worry, son. The care home still has a room waiting for you when your wife's had enough of your jokes. Carlene burst out laughing so loud the cat jumped off the couch. But the real ending came a week later, when that for sale sign out front turned into something Wade never expected to see again. A week passed. The for sale sign out front vanished overnight, replaced by a fresh white board that read in neat gold letters. Welcome home care opening soon. Residents move in Monday. When Wade saw it, he nearly dropped his morning coffee. You actually did it? You turned my home into a care center? Our home, I corrected. And no, your former home is now a profitable business. You should be proud, son. Your old man's finally an entrepreneur. Carlene covered her mouth, laughing. Oh, Wade, you're technically living in your dad's startup. He groaned. This is insane. I nodded, smiling. Maybe, but so was raising you. Then I motioned toward the driveway where a small van pulled up painted sky blue with cheerful letters. Meals, medicine, and amp. Memories delivered daily. The driver stepped out, carrying a box. Inside were freshly cooked meals, a blood pressure monitor, and a note. Welcome, Mr. Martin, our favorite resident. Your comfort comes first. I turned to Wade. They even put favorite resident. I didn't even have to bribe them. You know what that's called? He sighed. Karma? I grinned. Marketing. Carlene was laughing so hard she had tears again. Wade, your dad's running a senior empire out of your old kitchen. Correction, I said, pointing to my coffee mug that read CEO Chief Elder Officer. And business is booming. But that wasn't the true victory that came later, when someone unexpected came knocking on my new office door. It was late afternoon when the knock came gentle, hesitant, like it belonged to someone who just remembered how to say sorry. I opened the door, expecting a delivery. Instead, it was Wade, holding something behind his back. Dad, he said quietly. Can I come in? I eyed him for a moment. Depends. You bringing another eviction notice or a peace offering? He cracked a tiny smile. Something in between. From behind his back, he pulled out a small, crookedly wrapped box. Inside was a mug. On it, in bold blue letters, World's Most Stubborn Father. I couldn't help but laugh. You spelled brilliant wrong, he grinned sheepishly. Carlene picked it, said it fits better. We sat down at the same table where our war had started. This time, there was no TV, no recordings, just two men, one old, one trying to unlearn arrogance. He sighed. I've been thinking about what you said. About quiet not meaning weak. You were right. I treated you like an old memory instead of the man who made me. I took a sip of coffee, pretending not to get emotional, though my throat tightened like a knot. Well, I said, took you 40 years, but I'll take it. Then I chuckled. Besides, I forgive you, mostly because your rent was due yesterday, and I'm a generous landlord. He laughed, really laughed this time, and it sounded like the boy I used to know. But the best part came later that evening, when I turned on the TV and saw something that made me realize I hadn't just won, I'd healed. That evening, the sun dipped low, painting the house gold, my house, my second chance. I sat in my armchair, the one Wade once called old and squeaky. It still squeaked, but now it sounded like applause. The TV flickered on. The news anchor smiled and said, "Local man transforms his family home into a community care center offering dignity and laughter for seniors." They showed a short clip. Me, serving coffee to a few other old-timers, all laughing like kids. Behind me, the sign on the wall read, "Home isn't a place, it's who you forgive." Carlene stood beside me, wiping her eyes. Wade was in the background too, hammering up a new railing for the front steps. He caught the camera's gaze, smiled shyly, and said, "He's not a burden. He's my teacher." I chuckled at the screen. Took him long enough to pass the class. The cat meowed in agreement, curling up by my feet. I leaned back, warmth in my chest that no winter could touch. "Turns out," I whispered to no one in particular, "growing old isn't about losing power. It's about knowing exactly when to use it." The camera on the TV froze on my smile. And for the first time in years, it wasn't revenge I felt. It was peace. Now tell me, where are you watching from? And how young are you today? I read every comment, every story. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the Old Man Stories. Because around here, we don't get even. We get wise.